Good day, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to today's lesson. It's an English First Additional Language lesson. My name is Renske Petersen, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Sci-Bono Discovery Center, and the broadcasting is arranged by Pakama Research and Development. We're busy with reading and viewing the reading strategies. You must understand that in English we teach you skills. We don't teach topics like in the other subjects. So we have listening and speaking skill, and that's also very important. That's why we're going to have a discussion on the 27th of January on listening and speaking to assist you to do your speech as well, because an oral component is part of your final exam. The part of reading and viewing is the comprehension test that I'm going to touch on today, and the summary, which will also be discussed on the 27th of January. Visual literacy we're going to discuss with you today, and visual literacy comprises of an advertisement as well as a cartoon, 10 marks each. And then literature, you can see it's also part of reading and viewing. The discussion on literature is on the 20th of January. That's also a very important paper in English First Additional Language. And then I'm going to very briefly touch on writing and presenting, even though it is the biggest component of your papers because it counts 100 marks. But I will briefly touch on it because of our time limit today. So when we look at any text, whether it's literature or comprehension or your summary, we must approach it like an iceberg. Now, I hope you know what an iceberg is. There's a little picture of an iceberg. You can see that's that mountain of ice that you find in the ocean. If you don't know what an iceberg is, do some research on Google. The problem with an iceberg is that a little bit of it is seen on top. And then there's something below the surface, but then it goes down right to the bottom. Now, why do I say that a text is like an iceberg? Because there are different levels in any text. And the reading strategies will help you to unlock each of these levels. And you must realize that the questions are also linked to these levels. So your level 1 and 2 questions are the easy questions that are on top that you can easily see and decipher. The level 3 questions are the ones where you have to think a little bit. And then the level 4 and 5 questions are actually the most easy questions to do. But people think they're difficult because they might count 3 marks. It's a question where you ask your opinion. But your teachers and we will assist you to be able to answer these questions well. Now, when we approach this iceberg, we must determine your ability to read with understanding. That is why you do a comprehension test. Now, before you can read fluently and with understanding, you must realize that there are certain reading strategies that we employ. But these are done automatically. You don't really think about them as you use them. The first one is predict. When you predict, you look at the title and you skim through it, and then you get a basic idea. You think what is going to happen in the text. Then you connect. With connect, you make connections between things that happened in your own life or things that you know already and that you are reading about. When you visualize, you all know vision, it means you can see. In your mind's eye, you can draw a picture. You can picture what the author is trying to tell you. You create a mental image. With questioning, you actually ask questions you put questions to yourself. If I don't understand, why don't I understand? Why does this not make sense? And then the strategies will assist you to unpack that. And then clarification is when you investigate and identify the most important ideas. And lastly, you evaluate meaning you make a judgment, whether you understand it, whether you agree, whether you don't agree with what was written. So how do we unlock a comprehension test? You can see there's a little staircase, and in the same way there are steps to follow. The first step is to get the gist. You must just quickly skim through it. Because you skim through the questions, when you skim through the questions, you also get an idea of what is going to happen in the passage. Then you read the passage. Then you use the skill that we use, graphic organizer. That is when you also make links. You link something, like a mind map, and that can take any form, and you don't really have to do it. But if there are difficult concepts in the passage that you are reading, then you can really write it down and draw the comparisons, make a mind map. And this is a skill, and that's why we're teaching you skills, because you can use it in all your subjects. And you're going to do a lot of reading in economics, in history, in geography, in life sciences. The reading skills will assist you in all your subjects. The fifth step is you read your passage again, then you answer the questions, and then you check your answers to see whether you responded correctly to each of the questions. Now, when you get the gist, you just skim it. When we skim a read, we just go through it quickly with our eyes. It means it's the act of reading something quickly and superficially. So you don't sit there and read it intensively. You just read it quickly. It's a very fast pace that you use. You just get an overview of the form and the context of the text, and you check to see what source did the author or the examiners take the passage from, what is the title, and you look at the pictures and all the captions that are in bold or charts or graphs to make a clearer picture for yourself of what it is going to be about. And you must find the topic sentence in each paragraph. Remember, every paragraph has a topic sentence. Then when you skim through the questions in step 2, you just also skim read the questions, you encircle the instruction words. And this is something you will also do in all your subjects. You encircle the instruction word, identify, elaborate, explain. Those are question words. So that's when you encircle it. The other questions you will highlight. Like there's an example of highlight. You will highlight the keywords in the question. Then you find the meaning of a word in a text. Now, you can also, because often when we read a passage, there will be words that we don't fully understand. Then you must try and decipher what the meaning could be in the context of the passage that you are reading. So look at contextual clues. Reword the sentences until they make sense to you, and you use that by using synonyms and antonyms. Consider the finer details and employ critical language awareness to understand a difficult word that you're not sure of. For example, if we see this sentence, organic food is food that has been produced naturally. So if you see the word organic food, you might not know what is the meaning of organic. But if you read the rest of the sentence, the context, it says it's been produced naturally using only natural substances such as earth and water. No chemical fertilizers or poisons are used, and the food is 100% natural. Immediately you have an understanding of the meaning of organic. How do you also find the meaning of a word? Another way, if you're not sure, let's look, for example, at the word bar. Now the word bar could mean it describes soap, like a bar of soap. Or it can be a place that serves beer, a bar. I think in the townships they call it a shebeen, but you also get a bar. That's a place that serves beer. It can also mean the sand formation at the beach, like that picture. Or it could be a way that you use to lock a door. There's a ball. Let me give you some practical steps on how to find the meaning in a text of a word. There's an unfamiliar word. Then you must find the root or the prefix or the suffix of the word. So find the root. What is the prefix? What is the suffix? Remember, prefix means before and suffix is after the word. And then you must decide what is the part of speech. And then there will be 5 other clues in the sentence that you can use. The punctuation, the definition, the contrast, comparison, and the example. So let's try to attack a word, to make understanding of the word. First of all, you break the word down into smaller sections. Let's look at the word suicide. I'm sure all of you know what the meaning is of suicide. Suicide is when you kill yourself, commit suicide, killing yourself. So you already know that side must mean the killing, and suicide will mean yourself. If you see the word patricide, then you must now try to find the meaning of that. So how will you go about it? You first break it up, like patricide, and then the killing part is the side, and patri means father. So it's when you kill your own father, then you've committed patricide. Genocide, on the other hand, is when one's own race, because geno means race, when your own race has been wiped out. So it's the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a race. So that is how you break down a word to try and find the meaning. You can also look at the framework-based clues. Let's look at this sentence. A former employee, irate over having been fired, broke into the plant and deliberately wrecked several machines. So now, do you think this guy was calm, or was he very aggressive? I think he was aggressive because he wrecked the machines. If you wreck a machine, you break down the machine. So what would irate then mean? It's his state of mind. It's a feeling that's characterized by great anger. He was very mad at the treatment he received. A graphic organizer is you must identify the discourse markers or the transition words. In that way, you can unlock the meaning of the words. And you organize the text by reading the text, you encircle the unfamiliar words, you underline the transition words. And transition words are called linking or connecting words, and they used to link together different ideas in your text. You make notes as you read. That's very important. And then you use a graphic organizer and you organize the text accordingly. You can choose a part of the text or the text of a whole. And then you read again. And when you read, you must get into the right mood. Don't be negative about it. Dismiss your negative thoughts. Think positively about reading. I know some of you hate reading. But even though you might hate reading, you have to read. So dismiss negative thoughts. Start thinking how you love reading. Make sure your brain is interested in what you are reading. Don't think about your girlfriend or boyfriend when you are reading. Focus on the text in front of you. Engage critically with the text by underlining, encircling, making notes. Read more slowly. Because now we're not skimming, we're reading with attention. You must read calmly and carefully. So you read at a deliberate pace. You stop if you don't understand and you go back and you try to understand. Don't just go over it as if it doesn't matter. You might then miss a question's answer. Make notes as you read. And let's have an example of how to underline keywords and make notes. The first step in eliminating non-recyclable waste at home. That's my sentence. So now I must know, what does this mean? What if there was a simple way to begin your journey? You can see journey. What is this journey? To a non-recyclable, waste-free life, and turn your waste into green construction material and keep it out of oceans and landfills. An eco brick is a plastic bottle packed tightly with clean and dry non-biodegradable waste. These bottles can then, for instance, be used as building materials to create insulative structures and colorful furniture. So now you don't know what the meaning is of an eco brick. But here they explain to you that you make an eco brick, or you use an eco brick to get rid of non-recyclable waste at home. Then they explain the journey. Now you try to find the link to the journey. To green construction material. So we want to build something with green material. You know, everybody's talking about green electricity, green everything, because we should stop littering, and we should assist our beautiful earth to regain its proper place, because the way that we litter and mess is breaking down all the natural substances in the earth. An eco brick, so it's linked, and it can be used to building materials. So it's in the end your journey to have building materials that are strong and that you have used effectively to create a brick that is actually such a positive thing. And then in step 6, when you answer the questions, when you have your level 1 and 2 questions, these questions are the easy questions. That is now in a comprehension test. They count 12 marks. They are the ones that are on top. They are the easy questions. You just read. If they say list, if they say go to paragraph 1, you go back to paragraph 1. Then the level 3 questions, there you have to deduce or conclude something from evidence and reasoning. And it's also 12 marks. So the questions will be phrased a little bit more differently. It will not be like just list or name. It will be like what was the relationship between this, or is this true and false? And you must go and read again and see whether you agree, whether it's true or false. And then the level 4 and 5 questions, which I love, are the open-ended questions. And here you are asked for your own opinion. And that counts 6 marks. And it's so easy for you to get those marks, because you must just use your head or you must use your heart and think about the answer. And anything you say is correct as long, and that's important, as long as you base it on the text. You can't just think about your own idea. It must go back to the text. Now the level 1 and 2 questions are the easy ones. It's all the W questions. Who, what, when, where, and there's a how, and when, and what. So these are our easy questions. Tips for answering level 1 and 2. It will be words like describe what it is like. Identify the answer. Illustrate, give an example. Now these are the words that you will encircle, that you will highlight. Compare, you give differences or similarities. List, then you write in point form. And ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a tip here. If you are asked to list 2 items, don't write down 3. Write down only 2. Otherwise, if your third one is correct, your second one is correct, but your first one is wrong, you will only get 1 mark if the question counted 2 marks. So follow the instructions very carefully. If you asked to quote, then you must use inverted commas, and that means you copy directly from the text. And pay attention. Sometimes I try to trick you by asking you to quote 5 consecutive words or 3 consecutive words. Consecutive means next to each other, and you must count the words. If you write down 4, sorry, then you don't get your marks. And you must always use your own words unless you are asked to quote. When you have to answer level 3 questions, you need to infer or deduce or conclude something from evidence and reasoning rather than from explicit statements. So this is where we see whether you understand the question or the passage. So you must read. Some learners try to respond to the questions in a comprehension test without having read the passage because they don't like reading. You're not going to get good marks there. Example of a question, refer to paragraph 2, then they say explain what an echo brick is. In the text, if you go back to paragraph 2, it says an echo brick is a plastic bottle packed tightly with clean and dry, non-biodegradable waste. So explain means you cannot copy directly from the text. Non-biodegradable, you will have to put that in your own words. Refer to paragraph 2, explain the meaning of unsquishable. Now that's a difficult word. What does that mean? So you refer to the specific lines. Keep doing this and make sure your bottle is unsquishable. Now you must try and find out. Now remember what the word attack skills were that I discussed with you. You must first break down the word. Find the root. The root is squish. What is the part of speech of squish? That is a verb. So if it is un and squishable, it means these are the prefixes and the suffixes that we added to the word. There's your prefix, and then if you look at the framework clues, if you can squeeze it by more than 10% with one hand, you should add more waste. Finally, if it is no longer squishable, it is done. And there you will have answered the question correctly. So you made the connections by reading the whole sentence. Discuss the effectiveness of using the words cut out plastic in paragraph 5. Although it seems contradictory, making eco bricks is not about encouraging the production of plastic, but rather a temporary means of protecting the environment while we work out a way to cut plastic out of our lives. So why is it effective? That is what the examiners are asking you, and they're asking you to discuss, so it means you have to write a sentence. So literally, to cut out means to remove. So why is the word cut used instead of remove? Because if you cut something, you cannot bring it back. If you cut it, you remove it completely. Now let's look at an example for a little 4 and 5 question. Remember, these questions are the questions where we ask you to form an opinion based on the given text, and then you must make a judgment. These questions are also known as open-ended questions, and they should not pose a challenge if you base your responses on the given text. An example. Refer to paragraph 7 and 8. The writer states that recycling and composting are important habits. Do you agree with the writer's point of view? Substantiate your answer. Now you must think. Do you think it's important to recycle and to make your own compost? Now what are the steps? You refer to the paragraphs mentioned. You decide if you agree or disagree. Then you refer to the mark allocation, that is 2. And then you state yes or no and provide reasons based on the text. Another typical level 4 question. Do you think the title, How to Make an Eco Brick, the first step in eliminating non-recyclable waste at home, is appropriate? Again, you must think about it. Discuss your view. What is the article about? Think about that. What is the connection between the title and the article? And then the title is in 2 parts. Making an eco brick, that's the first part of it. And then eliminating non-recyclable waste. Decide then, yes, why do I agree? Or no, why don't I agree? Then lastly, you check your answers. The keywords in the question. Did you follow the instruction? Look at the mark allocation. Have I written enough to fully answer the question? If it's a 2-mark question, you can't write down only one word. You must have written down a sentence. Have I numbered correctly? Have I written neatly? That's extremely important, and it's going to affect your marks if you just scribble. Please practice your handwriting so that it is neat. Have I skipped a line between answers? That's important for you to do right through this year, even when you work in class, because it will force you to skip a line in the exam, and that makes it easier for the marker to award a mark to you. So let's see if you can remember what the steps are. Remember, there are 7 steps. First one is get the gist by just skimming. Then you must secondly skim through the questions. You read the passage. You make a graphic organizer. Maybe I didn't say enough about graphic organization, but that is like a mind map. If you have the main idea there and you have your different paragraphs there, that is like a graphic organizer. Read again, answer the questions, and then check your answers. And by doing this, you will get good marks for the comprehension test. Now, I'm just going to briefly touch on creative writing. Why am I going to discuss creative writing? Because paper 3 contributes 100 marks to your final marks. It consists of an essay for 50 marks, a longer transactional writing for 30 marks, and a shorter transactional writing for 20 marks. Now, you've written essays, longer transactional, shorter transactional, right through your career at school. But this year, it's very important to assist you to obtain English and a pass for English. Why it's also important that we have to discuss this is because it forms part of the SPA. The essay, which is your task 2, that's 50 marks of your SPA. Then you have to write a longer transactional task in task 3. And in the preparatory exam, you have to respond to a full question paper, write an essay, a longer transactional, and a shorter transactional text. Now let's go through the tips for writing an essay. After you've written your essay, revise, edit, and proofread your essay. How do you proofread? You check your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. It means you have to reread your essay. You can't write it and then just put it aside. Reread, check if your spelling, punctuation, and grammar are correct. Does every paragraph contain one main idea? You must rewrite it if it contains more than one idea, because then it's just jumbled. Is the format correct? Check that it is the correct length. Ladies and gentlemen, that's extremely important. Because if you write an essay that's too long, you're going to ramble and you're going to lose the interest of your reader. And then you are not responding to the instruction. So adhere to the word length. Check if you wrote an introduction. Check that you have expanded the ideas in the body of the essay. And check that there is a conclusion. Then we go to the longer transactional. Now in longer transactional, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the letter writing, because there's always a letter, some or other form of a letter. And you must realize and remember that there are different kinds of essays. You might not write all the types this year, but you have written these different essays in your school career. Sometime you must have written it. Make sure that you study the format of the different letters. So you get an informal or a friendly letter, and then you get a formal letter. Now, a formal letter can be a letter of application, letter of thanks, a letter of complaint, a letter of request, letter to the press, letter of sympathy. There's a difference in the format of the informal letter versus the formal letter. In an informal letter, you only have one address and you may write a little bit more informally, although you may never use slang in any letter. But the formal letter will always have two addresses. And the second address, the business address, will depend on whatever the purpose is of the letter. But your address that's in the right-hand corner of your page will always stay the same. And let me give you a good tip. Ask your teacher to assist you to find a good address that is easy to remember, that stays the same. Remember, this doesn't have to be the truth. This is for exam purposes. But we're trying to teach you how to write a proper letter with your address written correctly. So write a proper address, because sometimes where we stay, the numbers are jumbled, or it's not easy to describe exactly or to get the letter to be delivered to you again. So make sure that you have a proper address, and that one you can use for yourself in all your letters. There's a creative writing document on the website of DBE, and your teacher will also share it with you, where all the different formats are explained very thoroughly. So you must refer to the Creative Study Guide when you study for Paper 3. Now, what is the register of letters? Now, what does register mean? It refers to the degree of formality. And the formality must be acceptable to the audience and the purpose to what you are writing. So if you're writing to your friend, then your register will be informal. But if you write a letter of application, it must be formal, because you're addressing maybe your next employee. So the letter should be clear and straightforward. And even when you write an informal letter, it must be clear and straightforward. When you read the letter, you must understand exactly why you wrote the letter. You're not just writing the letter because you have to. There must be a purpose to it. It must be concise and to the point and logical. And please avoid writing in the first paragraph, I'm writing this letter because I miss you and I haven't seen you for a long time and I hope you are well. No. Right? Your introduction must be short and concise, and it must explain what you are going to write about. And apply the correct format. I'm going to say this 100 times with creative writing. The format is extremely important. You lose marks if the format is not correct. Now, we get in longer transactional different categories. I'm just going to briefly go through the categories. In category A, you get either a friendly letter, or you can get a curriculum vitae and covering letter that's asked as a combination, or part of the formal letter is a letter to the press, a letter of request, of application, a business letter, a letter of complaint, and a letter of sympathy. You can even write a letter of congratulations or thanks. And then this is a new question that we could expect, is an email, because the email is taking sort of the place of a letter, even though it's still the same format. It's just that you write it not on a piece of paper that's put in an envelope. You write an email on the computer. In category B, you can either write a review, you can write a newspaper article or magazine article, agenda and minutes of a meeting that's asked as a combination, formal or informal reports, and an obituary. And I know you love doing the obituary, but make sure that you use the correct format when you write the obituary. Your teachers will assist you with that during the year. And then in category C, you can get either a dialogue, and a dialogue is very nice to read as well, and it's nice to write. You must just be concise there as well, and not have the first part of the essay or of the dialogue where you spend lots of time on, hi John, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while. All that. No, you must use your dialogue effectively. You only have 150 words in which to write it. or you can write a written interview. They can ask you a formal or informal speech that's written. And then in the shorter transactional, we also have different categories. In category A, and remember section C counts 20 marks. Advertisement or an invitation or a flyer or a poster. So you see they're all linked. They basically have the same methodology when you write them. In category B, it's a diary entry, or you could be asked to write an SMS, a short message system. For example, you could be asked to write a WhatsApp or a Facebook Messenger message. Very importantly is that you may not use SMS language. It must still be full sentences, otherwise you won't get your marks. And then in category C, there will be instructions or directions. And now I want to give you some tips on writing the longer and shorter transactional. First of all, study all the formats of the different texts, because the examiners can ask any question. During the year, you will write informal tasks in class to provide you with an opportunity to practice the formats. Your teacher will explain the task to you, and then you will assess your own task by using a checklist. You will be provided with the rubric, because that's how creative writing is marked. We use a rubric. The teacher will explain to you how we use the rubrics, and then you use that to allocate yourself a mark. And then if you feel that you're not happy with your effort, ask your teacher how you can improve if you are uncertain.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the English Fall Revision program. Today's topic is reading and viewing, and I am Liz Mayer. Pleased to meet you. Right, today we're doing visual literacy, and we're going to start with multimodal text. Now, if you've never heard of a multimodal text, that is a text that uses both visual and written material in a single text. In other words, for example, an advertisement or a cartoon. Right, so you will have to learn how to apply your knowledge of images and visual elements to understand how they support each other. And that is exactly what we're going to look at today. Let's start with advertisements. Let's do a little bit of background. I found a video on TikTok where a woman claims that she had a McDonald's burger and kept it for 24 years. And you won't imagine it, but it was still edible. So what happened next? Let me show you. This is what the hamburger looked like in the bag after 20 years. Can you see? It still looks absolutely perfect. So what happened next was that Burger King jumped on the bandwagon as well. And they decided then to create an advertisement to show that their burgers actually do rot. Because McDonald's, well, the food is not rotting, which means there's so many preservatives in there. So Burger King came up with an advertisement showing a hamburger that rotted. Now, on the left-hand side on your screen, you'll see it says hamburgers after 34 days. So the burger shows exactly what it would look like after 34 days. Now, obviously, Nando's saw an opportunity. And what did they do? They jumped up as well. On the right-hand side, you'll see what they did. It says, our peri-peri chicken burger after 3 to 4 minutes. And if you look carefully, you'll see there isn't any burgers there because it's gone. It is so good, it just gets eaten immediately. So my question to you then is, let's think about this. Do you think the Nando's advertisement was effective? Now, what we actually happening here is what we call negative advertising. Now, advertising is either used to send a positive message to motivate you to do something, or a negative message to scare you into acting. So the next time you sit in front of a television watching an advertisement, think carefully, what are they trying to sell? Now, there are a number of techniques in advertising that you have to be aware of, and they're going to use all kinds of ways to persuade you to buy their product, and they love playing on your emotions. And these are some of the techniques that they will be using. So when you're watching an advertisement, think, what are they using? Some of these techniques. They include emotion, we've got reason, opinion, and obviously fact. So you have to know the difference between a fact and an opinion, obviously, and creativity. So look out for these techniques. Let's think about techniques in the following advertisements. Now, if you look at this one, this is an advertisement for bully beef, but it's not actually for the food itself. It's all about bullying. And how clever, on the left-hand side it says labels are for food, not people. Don't bully. In other words, don't be a bully beef. Now on the right-hand side you've got the bully, the bullied, and the bystander. I need you to remember this one. So this is used obviously to act and enforce and give a lesson to make sure that people don't bully. Very clever use here. The next one is also about bullying, but in this case the picture looks completely different. This is quite, I don't know, quite emotional picture. If you can look at it, you'll see words hurt. Now obviously words are the things we say, but in this case it looks like words can actually hurt you physically as well. And you can see the emotion on the little boy's face. It's really sad. Can you see how they play with your emotions? Let's look at the next one. I love this one. This is a potato. I'm even more flexible in the kitchen. Now, if you look at this potato, you'll see that it looks like he's doing some kind of yoga exercise. There's a mat, and he's lying on his side, actually. And look how cleverly the words are written. Not straight, but sideways. I'm even more flexible in the kitchen. Playing on the idea with a potato, you can do so much more. What a brilliant advertisement. Right, one of the most important things for every advertisement is target market. And you have to make quite sure that you know exactly who are the group of people the advertisement is trying to reach. This is one of the questions that are asked often in the exam paper as well. So make sure you understand this part. So advertisers use the fact that buyers classify themselves. So they create advertisements to appeal to these people. Right, so we've got teenagers, mothers at home, corporates. There's a whole different lot of groups. So it can be divided between age, gender, status, activities. But let's quickly do a little quick exercise just to show you. I need you to look at the picture and try to figure out who is the target market for the following product. Now, if you just look at that one, I see a range of books. This can be students that are studying that need to buy books, or learners, or somebody who's doing research. Whatever you're saying, make sure you explain your answer. Let me explain to you the next one. We've got our vegetables and fruit in a little basket. In this case, the target market would obviously be people who want to live healthy. Be careful. You can never say just people. You have to explain to me what kind of people. Let's look at the next one. Here we've got paintbrushes. Obviously, the target market here is for artists or people want to be creative. There's some tools. Be careful. You can't only say men, the target audience is men. Women like playing with tools as well. So make sure you get it right. Let's look at the last one. Right, so we've got baby toys here. Maybe parents, they would like to buy new toys for their kids, or even grandparents, they would love to buy toys. Always think very carefully when you try to identify the target market. Now let's look at advertising techniques. Now I'm sure you know this principle, the IDA principle. I mean, you've heard it so many times. But let's see how it works in real life. So the first one is for A, attention. Everybody wants to grab your attention. That's what they want to do. The next one is obviously interest. They want you to read. This is the most important part. After they've grabbed your attention, they want you to keep on reading. Then they will create a desire, something that you have to have as product. You might not really need it, but you would just love to have it. And obviously, they would like you to buy it. And this is where the action comes in. They want you to buy the product. Let's look at the next one. This is one of my favorite advertisements. Sure, did that one get your attention? I'm sure it did. So in this case, they shock you when you see the woman in a fish hook through her whole lip. And then obviously you will read and say, the average teenager spends 9 hours per day on social media. So this one really got your attention, I'm sure of it. Let's go to the next one. Here's another attention grabber. Can you see how brilliantly they've done this one? Look at the 8. You've got 1 step and 8 benefits. And the number 8 is repeated almost, 3-4 times. It really grabs your attention. Let's look at interest. So they've grabbed our attention and they really would like to keep our interest. We have a potato, another one, and it says, I am not fattening. I am sure you would love to read what it says there, because we know, and I know, potatoes are quite fattening. So obviously, as a reader, you would love to read and find out why this potato is actually so good for you. Desire. They will appeal to our human desires and tell us that we need the product, even if we don't. And obviously there is a desire for a lot of things. Fancy cars, safety, food, house, obviously to look good. Right? So they will play on your desire to get the product. A new cell phone perhaps, a brand that you would like to have, maybe a new camera, nice food. There's so many things we'd always like to desire. Right, next one is action. Look how brilliant this advertisement is. They've made it so easy for you to buy what you need online. Look at the words. Want it, get it, shop online. They've even gone so far as to give you 5 tips or steps on how to do it. Wow, they really want you to buy this product. Now, I have to warn you, they would do anything to grab your attention. And they've got gimmicks that they use. I'm sure you've seen all these words on the right-hand side. So what do they use? They do words like, or phrases, buy one, get one free. Or there's limited stocks. or you don't really know these limited stocks, but you think you have to buy this, you won't get this again. Or limit term offers, or even a money back guarantee. You always love a money back guarantee because you can take it back. Easy payment plans, or there's some discount involved, or you actually get a free gift. Who doesn't like a free gift? Or it's called the bargain of a century, or a clearance sale. So these are all gimmicks. So you have to be careful. These are the ways they grab your attention. So be careful. Right. The main thing they use is language. So when you look at advertisement, be very mindful of the language they're going to use. That is one way how they will persuade you to buy the product. Now they can either use informal language, and you'll see there's a few of them, which is everyday speech, the words we use every day. It's not as sophisticated. And obviously, teenagers love informal language. It's simple sentences and it's informal. So make sure you look at the language very carefully. They might even include some slang. The next kind of language that they like to use is what we call emotive language. This is where they play on your emotions, and they love doing it. Why? Because it will persuade you to buy that product. That's what it's all about. And they're going to use facts and opinions, propaganda, sensationalism, bias, anything to persuade you to buy it. So look out for that emotive language that they use. They can also use informative language. Now, this is different from persuasive language or emotive language. This is where we get information about the product or the service that's applied. That's terminology that's linked to a specific product. Words that we'd like to know. We call it jargon. Terminology specifically linked to the product. For instance, if you buy a computer, you want to know how much RAM it is, or how much gigabyte it has, and things like that. That's terminology for a specific product. Right. In the exam, besides asking about the target market, we love asking questions about logo and slogan. So make sure you understand the difference. So a logo is that picture or graph that you can see that reminds you that this is the product. And that's a signature for a brand. Now I'm sure you will immediately recognize all these logos. We've got Lay's, the chips, we've got WhatsApp, Coca-Cola, we've got Windows, Nurofen, and there's so many. Just make sure you are able to recognize where's the logo. Now the slogan is that phrase. That's the one that gets stuck in your head always. And it's stuck with regard to a brand. For LG, you've got Life's Good. Or Nike's Just Do It. And you even have Toyota, Let's Go Places. Avis, we try harder for you. Now, be careful for this one. You should not only be able to identify the slogan, you'll have to make a connection between the slogan and what is being advertised. How do the two link? So please make sure you go one step further when studying for advertisements. They can also use some catchphrases. Now, a catchphrase is like a phrase that appear not in all advertisements, only on some of it, but something that gets stuck in your head. For instance, look at this one. Speak up, make a difference, speak out. Here's another one. Don't let your last text be your last words. Now, another thing that they do is clever wording. They obviously want us to keep us interested. And what do? They're going to use alliteration or a rhetorical question, the one that doesn't need an answer, or a simile. For instance, we found a few brilliant ones. Look at this: double thick, double delicious. Same smoothness. And you can actually hear how smooth it is. Look at this one: good for vitamins, good for kids, great for fingers. Right, it's so clever wording. Please look at your advertisement. You'd be surprised at how clever language is used. One of my favorite ones is obviously Nando's. So whenever you see a Nando's ad, look at their language. They really get it going. This is very important. We have here a synonyms for accidental or antonyms for accidental. Now, what is the opposite of accidental? That is when something is planned, it's deliberate, it's essential. Why am I showing you this? Because everything in an advertisement is there for a reason. And you will have to figure out why it is there. So always remember, the advertiser designed these advertisements to keep you interested so that you will buy the product. So make sure you understand why everything is in there. Now, in the exam, you will have to answer quite a number of questions on advertisement. And I want to give you a few tips to make it a little bit easier. Now, as my previous colleague has said, there's always a question word. Make sure you underline it. That's the one that says identify or explain or evaluate or describe. Very, very important. Underline your question word. Then look at the question carefully. Find the key word or key idea and encircle this. Your next step is to look at the mark allocation. That will give you a very good idea as to the number of points that is needed. And then use the peel method to answer the questions. When you have to give an opinion, let me quickly remind you again. I don't know if you can remember these ones. I'll just add them here on the screen for you again. P is when you make a point. E is example. This is where you give an example. Another E is to explain, and the L means to link it back to the question. Always use the peel method. And you don't only have to use it in English. You can use it in all your subjects, especially if you have a high order question that you have to answer. That is the method you have to use. Very, very important. Right. I'm sure you know advertisements now by heart, and I'm sure you'll be able to analyze them perfectly. Another thing about visual literacy that is included are cartoons, and I think learners do struggle with them quite a bit. So let's make it easier for you. Let's start with the basics. What is a cartoon? Well, a cartoon is usually a picture accompanied by words and is funny. So, why do we have cartoons? Well, there's 3 reasons. Either it's going to inform us, it's going to educate us, or it is going to entertain us. So how do the cartoonists do this? Let me show you. Cartoonists might focus on events that happen in the news. As a grade 12 learner, you have to know what's going on in your life. not only your life, what's going on around you. So make sure you watch the news. Why? Because those events might be portrayed in a cartoon. It might tell a story. And obviously, they use humor to express their ideas. They can include a well-known personality or a situation that's well known and remind us of it. Or they can talk about a current political issue or even a social issue. And that's why I say again, you have to know what's going on in the world. Right, there's a number of concepts that you have to know in cartoons. First of all is the cartoonist, obviously the person who draws the cartoon. And I must say, in South Africa, we've got brilliant cartoonists. Then we have what we call a cartoon strip. So a cartoon strip is a series of frames where the story is told. And it tells the story. But we can have a frame. Now a frame is a single separate drawing of a cartoon strip. So cartoon strips can have a number of frames, or you can only have one. It depends. The punchline. And this is probably the most difficult part. This is usually in the last frame, and this is where it is supposed to be amusing or funny or clever or satirical. And we love asking you to tell us, why is the cartoon funny? So make sure you can figure out what is the punchline. What is that words or phrases or the drawing? What makes it so funny? Now, let's look at cartoons. It can be a single frame, as I said. Here's one. Dear Andy, how have you been? Your mother and me are fine. We miss you. Please sign off your computer and come downstairs for something to eat. Love, Dad. This is obviously for teenagers. Obviously, the only way that parents can communicate with Andy is to send him an email. That's the only way. So, look at them, ladies and gents. Shame, they drew really sad. They obviously miss him. They haven't seen Andy, but obviously Andy is stuck in his room the whole time. Right, let's look at another one. So, previously we had one frame. In the following ones, we'll have a series of frames. Now, we've got an old lady and frame one, and she says, hey, my handbag, and you can see part of a robber grabbing a bag and running away. And then frame two, we have, quick, follow that man. And can you see that follow is in capital letters and it's bold? And then the last frame, and this is where the punchline comes in. We have our robber, who we can identify with a black balaclava on his head. And he has a little poster that says, follow me on Twitter. Obviously, you don't expect the robber to say that he should be followed on Twitter, which is obviously a social media. Right. Now, the next one, I'm sure you might have seen them. This is what we call a caricature. This is where a cartoonist takes a person, chooses an aspect of the person, and then they exaggerate it by drawing it bigger or making it funny. Let me give you an example. I'm sure you'll recognize Will Smith here. And what they focus on here is obviously his big ears and his big teeth and his big nose. Right. And, oh, look at this guy. You can immediately recognize, but just look at those teeth. Right. If you want to have some fun with this, why don't you take a piece of paper, sit in front of the mirror, and draw your own caricature of yourself. It's really a lot of fun. Right. Something serious is what we call stereotypes. Do you remember when we did the advertisement about the bullying, the bully beef? And it says labels only belong on clothes. Now, this cartoon or these pictures really fit that. Now, you have to know that we stereotype quite a lot in cartoons. Now, stereotyping is when we have a fixed idea about a person or a group or even a nation. We feel that that's the way they are. So, and you can see here, we've labeled these people as stereotypes. So you have to be aware in cartoons that stereotyping will take place often. Let me give you an example. Teachers are usually drawn wearing glasses, and they always look old and hunched back. And teenagers always have their shoulders hunched with their pants low down. That's stereotyping. So be careful when you look at the cartoon that you are able to identify the stereotyping that's taking place. Right, let's look at a cartoon. In the question paper, there will be what we call a text box. That is a little box that gives us information about the background and the setting of a cartoon. That's the where and the when the cartoon takes place. So when you read your question paper, make sure you read the text box to make sure you understand where and when this cartoon is taking place. Let me give you an example. Here's one from Zitz. And you'll see that it says Zitz and his mom are in the kitchen. So that is our little text box that gives us a background. Now, this is such a funny cartoon. In frame one, it says, "Need any help, Mom?" So Jeremy, his name is Jeremy, actually wants to help. Yes, you can toss the salad. Now, obviously, the teenager is not sure what toss means. And what it does, it takes the whole salad and throws it all in the dustbin. And then he asks his mom, what was wrong with it? Now, just look at her reaction. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with the salad. Tossing the salad means you just have to move the ingredients around in there, lift up the lettuce a little bit. Any case, so obviously they will not be having salad tonight. Now, let's look at a few things that you have to know that might become very important in your cartoon. The first one is speech bubbles. So the cartoonist has to use ways to express how his characters are talking. So there are different ways to show this to you. We've got thought bubbles, and you'll see this one looks like a little cloud. It's always easy to recognize. Its edges are round, and it has like a little tail, little circles for a tail. But if my character is speaking, you'll see that the bubble is more closed, and there might be even a tail pointing to who is speaking. If my character is shouting, can you see the difference between thinking and shouting? Yes. Can you see those spiky edges and a spiky tail? So that tells me they're shouting. But if they're whispering, they're using these dotted lines. Can you see the difference here? So make sure you're able to recognize all the different kinds of speech bubbles. That will help you to analyze what are your characters doing. Right, let's look at actions. Now, there's two things you'll have to look at. You'll have to look at their facial expression, and you'll have to look at lines or symbols to show movement or emotion. So let's look here. We can see here in the last frame, look at his little eyes and his mouth. He thinks he's killed the bird. Can you see this is a thought bubble? It's got rounded edges. So he's thinking this. Right. Can you see these movement lines, how brilliantly it has been done? Right. Let's look at another thing. Now, you have to remember, all movement is indicated with lines. Now, those lines can be all vertical, can be curved, diagonal. Just make sure you look and find those lines. And you can see here, this little cloud always tells you it was really very, very fast. Okay. It is speedy action. So if our cartoonist wants to show speedy action, he's going to use these streaky lines. Can you see these ones? There they go. That tells me this guy is running really fast. These little lines here tells me that he's moving his arms and his legs up and down. Can you see this one as well? Very fast. Right. So we've looked at action, movement lines, and now I'm coming to two very important words that you will find often in cartoons. That is called irony and satire. So I'm going to take a few minutes with this cartoon. I need you to study this very carefully. Can you see we have a teacher in a classroom? How do I know it's a classroom? Well, there's a blackboard at the end. This is a stereotypical teacher. Can you see she's old and wears glasses because she has to figure out the handwriting of all these learners. And we've got all the kids in the class and they look like they're wearing a uniform. And I need you to note something, two very important things. Remember, we're not only looking at the picture, also looking at the words. So we've got here, if you look out of the window, a poster, and it says another school murder. Sure. And we have a question here that she asks, children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And this child answers, alive. So what is the connection between this child's answer and what's happening outside this classroom? Now, obviously, if you just look at this, we've got the poster, that's number one, to tell us there's been another school murder. But look at these two guys. They are obviously in uniform, but the one has a knife and the one has a gun. This is really scary. Now, let's look at two very important terminology. Irony. When she asked the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? We thought the learner is going to say, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an archaeologist. But in this case, the learner is just saying alive. So this is not what the reader expected it to be. That is irony. When you get an answer that you didn't expect. Now the other thing is, this might look quite funny. It is funny, but it's actually a very, very serious topic as well. Because of all these things, you realize that school isn't safe anymore. And that is where satire comes in. Satire is used to make important and stressful situations funny, to show their importance. So make sure you know the difference between irony and satire. Cartoonists love using both of them. All right. Body language. Oh, and I know this is difficult. Now, the only way the cartoonist can show what the character is feeling is using body language. But you can never tell me in the exam the body language shows she's angry. You have to be very, very specific. So what do you have to look at? Well, you have to look at facial expressions. You have to look at eyes, the eyebrows. You have to look at the mouth and the hands. So all of these things together with the body position refers to body language. So make sure you know these things. We can just look at this lady at her body language. You can see her eyes are really big, eyebrows are up there, mouth is huge, hands are splayed out, body, she's leaning forward. So what does it mean? Let's go through there. Right, here's another example. Now, in frame 1, let's start with this one. You'll see this little boy is hammering the nails into a table. And we've got whop, 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 whop. Now, these words are bold, which means they're loud. And now you can see the mom. Now, remember what we said? This speech bubble is jagged. In other words, she's screaming, Calvin, what are you doing to the coffee table? I'll show him. Look at Calvin's expression in the third frame. There's nothing. He has no idea. Can you see there's a little asterisk there? So the asterisk shows me it's confusion. He's thinking. And then in the last one he says, is this some sort of trick question? So in the first one, let's look at his facial expression. He's happy, he's smiling. Mom is hysterical. Can you see the difference, the contrast? Wide open eyes, wide open mouth. She's running forward. There's nothing. Blank expression, obviously confusion. And poor mom, look at her here in the last frame. Her hands on her head, she's despaired. Right. So when you're doing the body language, you have to look at certain things. Eyes. Eyes are the windows to the soul. So use it. Make sure you understand how eyes are used. Check where the eyebrows are. They work with the eyes. And the mouth. If it's big, open, person might be happy, but they might be screaming as well. Hands. Remember, this is the only way the cartoonist can show how the character is feeling. If it's in a fist, anger or frustration. But if it's an open hand, it's friendship. Right. Pay attention if the arms are folded over the chest. So watch what's happening. If somebody stands in front of you with their arms folded over your chest, it means they're not interested to hear what you're saying. If they're leaning forward, they're moving into your space. And that can lead to an argument. Now I'm going to teach you a new word. And this is something that you might recognize, but I don't know if you knew what it means. Emanata. Emanata is to show us different states of being. I'm sure you've seen a light bulb. A light bulb means an idea. Question marks are usually confusion. The Z's shows us that somebody is sleeping, and all those kinds of letters. So somebody is really angry. He's probably swearing. Right. So this is just for interest's sake. Now, in the exam, you'll be required to identify visual and verbal clues. So let's quickly run through them. We've got visual clues are the things that you can see. And verbal clues is the words. Let me show you how quickly this works. I'm going to show you a frame, and I want you to write down all the visual clues you can find and all the verbal clues. Now you can do this as an exercise when you have time. Do this when you're analyzing advertisements. Cartoons. Let's check. Visually, and what I do here, I write down everything I can see. I look at the mouth, the arms, everything that I can see, I write down. Then, verbal, I refer to all the words. You have to pretend the person marking your paper can't see the picture. And you have to explain to me exactly what you see and what it means. Right. Cartoons are funny. So how do they make sure it's funny? Remember, we talked about irony. Something happens, the opposite is what you expect. I'm sure you all know sarcasm. That's what somebody says to make you feel, well, stupid or angry. A pun. A pun is where they use a word that can have two meanings. So be careful for these ones. And obviously we spoke about satire, is where they criticize using humor, but it's actually a very serious situation. Right. So how are you going to analyze your cartoons? Always refer back to the cartoon. Pay careful attention to that body language. Make sure you explain every single bit of it. And remember, for humor, we use puns, satire, sarcasm, and irony. So make sure you refer to that as well. Now, there's a few basic questions, and I'm just quickly going to run over them because we've covered most of them. So if you are at home and you want to practice this, start by starting with your characters. What are they doing? Look at their clothes. Who are they? Describe their expressions. Look at the setting. Where are they? What are they doing? Describe the setting. Now, look at the words. Who's speaking? How do they emphasize the words? And very important, why is this cartoon so funny? So please find cartoons and analyze them. You really need to practice this. So focus on actions, characters, language, and setting. And I'm sure you'll do brilliantly. But don't forget those stereotypes. They always come in handy. Right. I'm sure you've learned so many things about advertisements and cartoons today. But the most important thing I want you to remember, the more you read, the more things you'll know, the more you learn, and the more places you'll go. So keep Dr. Seuss's words in mind. And reading is food for the mind and the soul. You have to read as much as possible. Thank you.